hapon. Again, for those, ang dami kasi nag-message, no? And this Sunday. For those students na hindi nakapag-quiz yesterday, okay, because of connectivity, okay, we will going to unpublish the quiz mamaya after this conference. Again, I am going to unpublish the quiz. By the way, meron kayo afternoon, no? 3:30. Okay. 12:30. Okay. I'm going to unpublish the quiz 12. Okay. Again, I am going to unpublish the quiz later on 12 and unpublished it 12:30. Again, for histology na hindi naka-quiz kahapon, I am going to unpublish the quiz 12 noon and publish it 12 noon and unpublish it 12:30. Again, 12 noon and 12:30. Okay? So today, class, we are going to discuss the different types of host. Okay? So I know no na we already delayed no to discuss this one, but since hindi klaro yung mga life cycle or hindi din masyadong maintindihan yung life cycle, class, if hindi natin ito i-discuss. Supposed to be, class, we are going to discuss this in the lecture, but on our book, class, wala kasing ganitong chapter or hindi ito part ng ating book. So I have decided no na to discuss this in our laboratory at gawin na lang siyang activity. Okay? So today, we are going to discuss the different types of hosts. Okay? I'm going to upload the presentation, no? Yung
ay, isa lang man yun, May. Isa lang na sabon. Ay,
wait lang ha.
oh, kay ingon niya kay kung ano daw i-try sa daw niya. Dili na lang to yung maanohan, May? Dili na lang? Ano ba ito siya na magkuha siya isa? Isa na lang.
Okay. So today, class, instead of kakain siya ng time natin for lecture, no, we're going to have an activity about the different types of host. Again, hindi kasi ito part ng book natin. So if you scan your book, wala ito siya sa ating book, no? So dito na lang natin siya gagawing activity para hindi din siya makakain ng time sa lecture natin. Okay? So today, class, we're going to discuss the different types of host. So after this conference, I'm going to upload these activities sa course ninyo. By the way, hindi pa ito siya wala pa ito sa course ninyo. After this conference, I'm going to upload it. Okay? So today, class, we are going to... by the way, okay lang ba magtuloy-tuloy tayo or nag-breakfast na ba kayo? Sige. Alam mo, nakita ko kasi ang post ni Ma'am Ivy niyo, no, na parang katatapos lata din niya nagkain, nag-lecture. Sige, class. Okay? Sige. Ano ito? Sige, I'm going to give you 15 minutes. Okay, again, I'm going to give you 15 minutes. Do your breakfast. Make yung iba maligo na, yung iba magkape, yung iba mag-breakfast. Okay? Sige. I'm going to give you 15 minutes before we start. Is it going to be a permanent, okay, parasitism, or is it just a temporary parasitism? Okay? When we say permanent parasite, class, okay, wait, sorry. When when we say permanent parasites class, they are those parasites that depends completely on the host. Okay? Ibig sabihin, they could not live without a host. Okay? Also known as obligate parasites, obligatory parasites. Okay? So they needed a host to survive. Okay? So they need a host for their metabolites, shelter, transportation, and the parasite cannot live outside of the host. For example, we have Plasmodium species. Okay, Plasmodium species, the species of parasites that causes malaria. Okay, they are the Plasmodium. Okay, basically, class, they live or they multiply inside our red blood cells. Okay, and another one is Trichomonas vaginalis. Okay, it is a type of parasite that is sexually transmitted. Okay? Dadaan tayo dyan pag kumabot tayo sa Trichomonas. Okay? So, another classification of parasite class is according to its pathogenicity. When we say pathogenicity class, it's its capacity, okay, to cause illness or disease. Okay? So, it is divided into two, no? We have pathogenic parasites. So, when we say pathogenic parasites, it causes disease in the host. Okay? We have also non-pathogenic. Okay? We call them commensal. Di ba we have discussed this in our lecture, no? So, pathogenic, we have Histolytica or Entamoeba histolytica. For non-pathogenic or the commensal parasites, we have Entamoeba coli. Okay? And another type of parasite class is what we call opportunistic. Okay, opportunistic parasites class. When we say opportunistic, they could not cause disease or illness if the host is healthy. Again, when we say opportunistic parasite class, kaya siya opportunistic. Naghihintay lang sila whenever the host is weak or immunocompromised. Okay, so parasites which cause mild disease in the immunologically healthy individual. So para siyang mild to almost nothing. Okay? No disease at all. But when your immune system lowers down or nagiging immunocompromised ka na, okay, they cause severe disease or severe illness. Okay? So, immunodeficient host, for example, patients with autoimmune diseases, hosts which are old in age, no, old ages, okay, yung mga matatanda, or even the younger ones. Okay? O yung hindi pa established yung immune system. Okay? Or even yung mga immunocompromised like HIV patients, okay? Yung hindi na stable ang kanilang immunity. So, the opportunistic parasites causes severe illness. Okay? So, yan yung different types of parasites according to their dependence and pathogenicity. Okay, so let's move on to the different types of host classification. Okay, so first, we have the definitive host. When we say definitive host class, it literally means the final host. Okay, depending on the parasitic species, it is either a host which harbors the adult stage of the parasite or most highly developed form of the parasite, of course, or sexually mature stages of the parasite, and fertilization takes place. Okay, for example, man. Okay, man is a very good example of a definitive host. Okay, so when the mature or most highly developed form of a parasite is not obvious in the definitive host, it is in a mammalian host. For example, definitive host for trypanosoma that causes African trypanosomiasis. Okay, so most of the life cycle of parasites class, human or men is the definitive host. Okay, so when we say definitive host class, no, it harbors the final form or final stage of the parasite morphology. Okay, or kung hindi naman siya final, it's the highest or most highly developed parasitic morphology. Okay? Yun yung nakaka-infect sa kanya. Okay? In that particular definitive host body class, okay, the sexual or the fertilization of the parasite happens. Okay? So kaya nga siya tinawag na definitive host. Okay? Another is intermediate host. Okay? When we say intermediate host class, the harbors the immature or the larval stage of a parasite. Okay? In which no fertilization takes place. For example, we have cow for Taenia saginata. Okay? The definitive host for Taenia saginata class is human, and the definitive host or the intermediate host class is the cow. Okay? Basically, class, when we say intermediate host, pwede siyang isa, dalawa, tatlo. Okay? For example, yung larval stage ng parasite na ito, tatlo. Okay? The first larval stage develop in the first intermediate host. Okay? Another larval stage develop in another intermediate host. Okay? So that's intermediate number 2. And then the third larval stage, okay, develop in intermediate 3 or intermediate host 3. And that intermediate host 3 class, yung larval stage na yun yung infective sa diagnostic stage or sa definitive host. Okay? So, this intermediate host. Again, immature or it harbors the larval stage. Okay? And it does not or no fertilization takes place. Again, no fertilization takes place. Next, we have the amplifier host. Amplifier host class is not normally seen in the normal life cycle. Minsan lang ito nakikita. So this particular host class is an example of intermediate host. So, but by the way, minention lang siya dito because unlike other intermediate host class, okay, it produces or it harbors the parasite with a different scope. Okay? Bakit siya iba sa other intermediate host? Because, okay, it amplifies or it boosts the multiplication of the parasite. Amplifier host class is an intermediate host in which the parasite undergoes multiplication. Okay? Hindi lang siya basta-basta multiplication class. Okay? Pinapadami niya talaga. Okay? It boosts the multiplication of the parasite. Okay? That's the amplifier host. Next, we have the reservoir host. Okay? Reservoir host class are wild or domestic animal which harbors the parasite and acts as sources of infection to human. Okay? Reservoir host. Ano naman ang difference nito class sa intermediate host? Okay? When we say reservoir host class, okay, it does not manifest any signs and symptoms. Okay? The intermediate host, probably, wala din, pero there is a multiplication or there is a stages class, no? Or there is a development of stages in the intermediate host. Sa reservoir host class, wala. Okay? Sa intermediate host, mayroong development ng stages. Sa reservoir host, wala. Okay? So, it harbors also, yung ating mga infective stage to the infective stage ng parasite sa definitive host. Okay? So, tinatawag sila reservoir host. Some book class, okay? Yan, reservoir host. Okay? Another one is carrier host. Okay? Carrier host, sa ibang book, by the way, sa ibang book class, reservoir host and carrier host, isa lang. Okay? Pero sa source natin, hiniwalay niya. Okay? When we say carrier host class, by the way, yung ibang book naman, they call carrier host as paratenic. Okay? Paratenic host. Or the transport host. Okay? The host harboring and disseminating a parasite but exhibiting no clinical signs. Okay? Walang nakikitang any sign of infection. Okay? Ano lang yung ginagawa niya, class? They kinakalat lang nila yung infection. Again, ano yung purpose ng carrier host? Okay? Kinakalat lang nila yung infection. Carrier host class, basically, meron silang transportation or wherein pwede silang wala sa life cycle ng parasite, pwede ding nandyan. Okay? Katulad din ng last example natin, we have the accidental or the incidental host. Okay? Infection of the host other than the normal host species, a parasite may or may not continue full development in the host. Okay? Accidental class is normally hindi mo siya nakikita sa life cycle ng parasite. Okay? So, when you insert another accidental or incidental host class, probably it is a type of intermediate, okay, another type of intermediate, or another type of definitive host. Pwedeng ganun. Okay? So particularly class, no? We have different types of host. Okay? Pwedeng sa ibang book, si accidental, carrier, and reservoir host, isa lang. Okay? Meron namang ibang book class na nakahiwalay sila because of the purpose. Okay? Baka malito kayo, no? So, when we say definitive, the final. Okay? Or the final host or the host that harbors the final stage of a parasite. When we say intermediate naman, okay, it harbors the immature or immature stage of the parasite. When we say amplifier, okay, it boosts the multiplication of the parasite. Reservoir naman, it harbors the parasite and acts as the source of infection to human. Okay, reservoir host. When we say carrier host, the purpose solely is for transportation and it does not exhibit any parasitic signs of infection. And lastly, we have the accidental host, okay, or incidental sa ibang book. Infection of the host other than the normal host species. So normally class, when I say incidental, for example, pinya, for example, class, For example, amoeba or Entamoeba histolytica. Okay? Diba, sa life cycle of Entamoeba histolytica, the normal definitive host class is human. Okay? Pero, pwede din naman na maging definitive host ang other mammals, katulad ng unggoy. Okay? And other species class na exhibits the same intestinal anatomy of humans and harbors the parasitic form of Entamoeba histolytica. Okay? Pero normally, hindi mo siya nakikita sa ibang animals. Okay? Because it only harbors or it only infects human. Okay? So those are the different types of the host. Okay? So now, we are going to have an activity regarding our types of host. Okay? So, for the activity class, you're going to give one example per type of host. Okay? And explain the relevance of the life give one example of host. Okay, give one example of host in each types of host and explain the relevance in the life cycle of a parasite. Again, give one example of each types of the host and their relevance on the life cycle of the parasite. Okay, for example, definitive host, human. Okay, and you are going to cite and explain explain the role of human in the life cycle of a certain parasite. Okay, ganun na. Again, give one example of each types of host and explain their relevance in the life cycle of a parasite. Okay, so for example, human, definitive host, human, and you're going to explain the role of human in the life cycle of Entamoeba histolytica, for example. Okay, as an definitive host or as a definitive host. Okay, ganun na activity. The deadline for this activity class will be next week, Monday. So again, I'm going to show you a video class, no, a particular life cycle of a parasite. Okay, this will show, I guess, an intermediate host. Okay? Sorry na. May yung aso.
Schistosomiasis is a tropical disease caused by a group of parasitic worms called schistosomes. These worms are also called blood flukes. The disease has affected people for thousands of years, and evidence of the disease has even been found in Egyptian mummies. Schistosomiasis is also known as bilharzia, named after Theodore Bilharz, who first described the parasite in humans. It's estimated that over 200 million people around the world are infected with these parasites. In sub-Saharan Africa alone, it causes over 200,000 deaths each year. Schistosomes have a very complex and interesting life cycle involving humans, snails, and fresh water, such as lakes, ponds, and reservoirs. 5 main types of schistosomes are responsible for most human disease. They differ in their distribution, the kind of disease they cause, and the type of snails that they live in. Hematobium is mostly found in parts of Africa and the Middle East, and causes disease in the urinary and genital areas. Mansoni are mostly found in Africa, South America, and the Caribbean. Japonicum in parts of China and Southeast Asia, Mekong-E in Cambodia and Laos, and Guineensis in Central Africa. These affect mainly the bowel and liver. Let's have a look at their life cycle. Infected humans pass schistosome eggs through their feces or urine into fresh water. These eggs then hatch into larvae called cercari. The cercari swim and penetrate the skin of a human and can enter the body of someone using the water. Once in the body, they find their way through the lungs and into the liver, where they grow into adult worms. They then migrate into blood vessels surrounding specific organs, where they can live for many years. Some species of Schistosoma like to live around the bowel, whereas other species prefer living around the bladder. These adults can lay thousands of eggs a day. Some of the eggs find their way back into the water through urine or feces and start the life cycle again, but some eggs get trapped in the organs. Schistosomiasis can cause both short-term and long-term disease. When the cercari penetrate the skin, some people develop an itchy rash called swimmer's itch or fisherman's itch. Some people can develop a syndrome called acute schistosomiasis, also called Katayama fever. This occurs about 4 weeks after being exposed to the parasites for the first time. It usually presents with a fever and a range of other symptoms, such as diarrhea, rash, and respiratory symptoms. This is usually self-limiting. The long-term effects of schistosomiasis are more serious and occur as a result of the eggs that are trapped in various organs. The trapped eggs can lead to changes in tissues characterized by the formation of granulomas with a lot of inflammation around them. In the bladder, this can lead to hardening of the bladder wall, obstruction, and can even result in a type of bladder cancer. This can present with symptoms such as blood in the urine. Intestinal schistosomiasis can lead to symptoms such as abdominal pain, diarrhea, and blood in the stool. In the liver, the eggs can cause scarring of the tissues around the vessels of the liver, obstructing them, and can cause enlargements of the liver and spleen. Other organs that can be affected include the genital system, lungs, and sometimes even the brain. Chronic infection, especially in children, can lead to anemia. How is the disease diagnosed? Well, the disease can be diagnosed from the urine and stool using special techniques, or by biopsy of tissues and examining it under the microscope. There are blood tests that can look for antibodies against the parasite. There is no vaccine against schistosomiasis yet, but there is effective medication to treat the disease. They usually work by killing the adult worms, which means that the eggs are no longer produced. Recovery of the affected organs depends on the type and extent of the damage that has already taken place. So how do we prevent the disease? Preventing the disease can occur at various points in the worm's life cycle. Remember the life cycle? The spread of schistosomiasis needs an infected human who contaminates the water, a snail, and subsequent contact with another human who uses the contaminated water. The disease can be eliminated in humans using medication. In areas that have a lot of disease, entire communities or targeted at-risk groups can be treated with medication to reduce the incidence of disease. Large-scale drug treatment has been an effective way to control schistosomiasis. Another approach is to reduce the contamination of water. This involves activities such as educating people on proper sanitation and providing necessary facilities such as toilets. Some countries have tried to eliminate snails by using chemicals or biological control methods. Their effectiveness has been variable. The other way to prevent the transmission of disease is through reducing contact with contaminated water. Tourists can be advised not to swim or wade in areas that are known to have schistosomiasis. However, avoiding water can be hard to do for people who live near water and depend on it for their livelihood or for basic functions. Providing clean water sources for drinking, cooking, or washing clothes can reduce contact with contaminated water. So that's an overview of schistosomiasis. For more information, have a look at the websites below.
Okay, so by the way, class, no, if you see the video, if you see the life cycle of schistostoma species, okay, for example, the human releases the diagnostic stage of the parasite. Okay? Diba yung diagnostic stage of the parasite is what we see from the human or yung nakuha natin sa human being. Okay? Diba na-release siya sa tubig. Okay? If that particular parasite class is hindi nakapunta or hindi nakapasok sa snail, okay, it will not going to continue the life cycle. Mamamatay siya or pag hindi siya nakakita ng snail, okay, or hindi siya nakapasok sa snail, mamamatay yung parasite outside. Okay? It will not going to infect the host again because it does not develop yung particular stage or morphology wherein kailangan niya to infect human. Kailangan niya muna ng snail. Okay? So the snail is the intermediate host for the schistostoma species. Okay? Nakuha niyo yung point or yung importance ng life cycle or the importance of intermediate host sa life cycle ng isang parasite. Okay? So, the activity, may tanong si Ms. Kobo, no? Okay lang class kahit iba't ibang parasite. Okay? Basta mayroong example of that particular host. Doon sa activity natin, no? Okay? Again, give one example of each type of the host and explain their relevance in the life cycle. Kahit iba't ibang parasite class, basta it exhibits that particular example of the host. Okay? May question? Okay? So after this conference class, I am going to post 2 questions for our laboratory quiz today. Again, after this conference, I am going to post 2 questions, okay, for our laboratory quiz today. The deadline is within this day. Again, the deadline for our laboratory quiz is within this day. Pero itong activity number 9 natin class will be on Monday next week. Okay, nakuha ba? Intindihan? Again, ulitin ko ha. The deadline for activity number 9 will be Monday next week. Okay? And then, the laboratory quiz, by the way, 2 questions yon. And I'm going to upload it after this conference. The deadline will be within this day. Okay? So again, for histology quiz, yesterday, no, sa mga hindi nakapasok for histology quiz, I am going to publish the quiz 12 noon. And unpublished it 12:30. Again, 12 noon and 12:30 unpublished. Okay? So do you have any questions for our activity today? Intindihan ba? Nakuha ba ang point? Okay? So kung wala ng tanong class, I'm going to end this conference. Okay? So make use of the remaining time, okay, for the activity and for to answer the quiz and to answer or to research about the activity number 9. Okay? So thank you everyone and see you tomorrow for another laboratory conference. Okay? See you everyone and be safe. Bye.